The 2014 Colorado gubernatorial election was held on November 4, 2014, to elect the governor and lieutenant governor of Colorado, concurrently with the election to Colorado's Class II U.S. Senate seat, as well as other elections to the United States Senate in other states and elections to the United States House of Representatives and various state and local elections. Incumbent Democratic Governor John Hickenlooper and Lieutenant Governor Joseph García were re-elected to a second term in office, defeating Republican former U.S. Representative Bob Beauprez and his running mate, Douglas County Commissioner Jill Repella, by 68,000 votes. Democratic primary: John Hickenlooper was the only Democrat to file to run, and thus at the Democratic State Assembly on April 12, 2014, he was renominated unopposed. Candidates equals. Nominee: John Hickenlooper, incumbent governor. Results equals. Republican primary: at the Republican State Assembly on April 12, 2014, Mike Kopp and Scott Jesler received 34% and 33% of the votes of over 3,900 delegates, respectively, thus winning a place on the ballot. Greg Brophy, Steve House and Ronnie Bell Sylvester received 19%, 13% and 2%, respectively, falling short of the 30% needed to qualify for the ballot. Bob Beauprez and Tom Tancredo did not contest the Assembly vote, instead petitioning their way onto the ballot. Candidates equals. Declared: Bob Beauprez, former U.S. Representative and nominee for governor in 2006, Scott Jesler, Secretary of State of Colorado, Mike Kopp, former Minority Leader of the Colorado Senate. Running mate: Vera Ortegan, biologist and former Pueblo City Councilor. Tom Tancredo, former U.S. Representative and Constitution Party nominee for governor in 2010. Eliminated at convention: Greg Brophy, State Senator; Steve House, healthcare consultant and chairman of the Adams County Republican Party; Ronnie Bell Sylvester, rancher. Withdrew: Jason Clark, money manager and independent candidate for governor in 2010; Steve Laffey, former mayor of Cranston, Rhode Island and candidate for the U.S. Senate from Rhode Island in 2006. Declined: George Brauchler, Arapahoe County District Attorney; Dan Kaplai, radio host; Cory Gardner, U.S. Representative; Jennifer George, Attorney; Sri Guru, State Representative; Victor Mitchell, former State Representative; Ellen Roberts, State Senator; Bob Schaffer, former U.S. Representative, candidate for the U.S. Senate in 2004 and nominee for the U.S. Senate in 2008; Lang Syars, former Navy fighter pilot; Walker Stapleton, Colorado State Treasurer; John Suthers, Colorado Attorney General. Endorsements equals. Polling equals, poll for the Bob Beauprez campaign. Results equals. Libertarian primary. Candidates equals. Nominee: Matthew Hess, IT Systems Administrator. Green primary. Candidates equals. Harry Hempe, software engineer and progressive activist. Unsuccessful: Bill Bartlett, co-chair of the Green Party of Colorado. Independents. Candidates equals. Declared: Mike Dunafon, mayor of Glendale; Marcus Giovanni, Google Plus Conversation Authority and entrepreneur. Withdrew: Jim Rundberg, businessman. General election. Candidates equals. John Hickenlooper, incumbent governor. Running mate: Joseph García, incumbent lieutenant governor. Bob Beauprez, former U.S. Representative and nominee for governor in 2006. Running mate: Jill Repella, Douglas County Commissioner. Mike Dunafon, mayor of Glendale. Running mate: Robin Roberts, president of Pikes Peak National Bank. Paul Farino, performing arts teacher, former director of the Pueblo Ballet and independent candidate for governor in 2006 and 2010. Running mate: Charles Whitley, retired military, arts advocate and publisher. Matthew Hess, IT Systems Administrator. Running mate: Brandon Young, photographer, graphic designer and political activist. Harry Hempe, software engineer and progressive activist. Running mate: Scott Olson. Polling results. Throughout the night the race was very close. With 90% of the vote and Beauprez had around a 3,000 vote lead. The Democrats were holding out hope that Jefferson County would edge them out. When 96% of the vote had reported, Hickenlooper pulled ahead. Ever since then his lead only began to grow. Beauprez conceded defeat at 5:48 on the morning of November 6. References. External links: Colorado gubernatorial election, 2014 at Ballotpedia, campaign contributions at followthemoney.org, official campaign websites, John Hickenlooper for governor incumbent, Bob Beauprez for governor, Mayor Mike Dunafon, Scott Jessler for governor, Harry Hempy for governor, Matthew Hess for governor, Mike Kopp for governor, Jim Rundberg for governor, Tom Tancredo for governor.